You are listening to the Wells Report. Thanks very much for doing so. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. The news, the facts, commentary, and debate. It's what we do on the Wells Report. 844-927-6691. So Charlie Rose got canned today, not just from CBS, but from PBS. And not just from PBS, but also from Bloomberg. Hey, Mike, I don't know what happened to I don't know what happened to my phone thing, but could you re-enter all that information, please?
Yes, sir. No problem.
I would appreciate that because for some reason I got Gary's old information, and I was wondering if I must have hit something wrong or something. So if you could put that back in, I sure would appreciate it. Telephone number again is 844-927-6691. We'll get to your call in just a moment. 844-927-6691. So Charlie Rose gets fired from 3 networks, and this is how they handled it on the morning show where he worked on CBS. This morning's broadcast was led by co-host Gayle King and Norah ODonnell. It began with the allegations against Rose, confirming that Monday's Washington Post and Business Insider stories were accurate after speaking to one of his accusers. Now, once again, what we have done here is we have essentially gone to the air on a major news network and said, this story is true based on a conversation with someone who has not had to write an affidavit, has not had to swear out a complaint, criminal complaint, who has not had to do anything except call somebody in the newsroom and say, hey, this happened. That's all it took. Then Gayle King said, quote, Charlie does not get a pass here, unquote. She noted that Oprah Winfrey, called her today and said, are you okay? Gayle King went on to say, I'm not okay after reading that article in the Post. It was deeply disturbing, troubling, and painful for me to read. To the women who have not spoken up, who are afraid, I'm hoping now that they will take the steps to speak out too, that this will become a moment of truth. Norah ODonnell said, let me be very clear. There is no excuse for this alleged behavior. It's systematic and pervasive, and I've been doing a lot of listening. I'm going to continue to do that. This I know is true. Women cannot achieve equality in the workplace or in society until there is a reckoning and a taking of responsibility. This will be investigated. This has to end. This behavior is wrong. But then again, there's something else here. Listen carefully. The headline, Jill Filipovich from CNN, the headline is Charlie Rose played the role of dirty older man on CBS this morning. The sexual harassment and assault claims against powerful men keep rolling in, and this week it's Charlie Rose. Under scrutiny after a stunning piece in the Washington Post detailed allegations of years of Rose's harassment and unwanted sexual advances towards younger female employees and prospective employees. This should not come as a surprise. Rose played the role of dirty older man on CBS for years. Again, listen closely. This is from Jill Filipovich. Talk about sex has been routine on CBS this morning, which shouldn't be a big deal. Adults have sex and it's fun and a normal part of life. But the CBS This Morning sex talk tended to follow a familiar script. Flirtatious women teasing a leering older man. Such was the staple of the show. And also that Last Week Tonight with John Oliver has over time turned it into a running gag. In other words, Charlie Rose was playing a flirtatious old man in response to flirtatious women teasing him. Does that mean anything to anybody? Yesterday I asked, are all these victims actually victims? Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to cast aspersions on anybody. What I'm doing here is I'm looking for some reality. Charlie Rose walks around naked in front of people who didn't appreciate it. Okay, that's reality. Should it cost him his job? Absolutely. Al Franken gropes people in pictures. It was one of the bits that he used to do. He's not the only one that's done that. It may come as a shock to the tender sensibilities of the executive producer of this broadcast, the Philip Brown. But indeed, I was groped not once, but twice by a country music superstar. Unfortunately, it was Ronnie Milsap. Ronnie Milsap, of course, as I told you the story, my wife at the time and I, and my wife at the time and I were standing next to Ronnie Milsap. We were backstage. They were taking pictures, and Ronnie Milsap, playing the part of a blind guy who could not tell the difference between the man on his right and the woman on his left, pinched the man on his right on the buttocks. And I said, Ronnie, that's me. He goes, oh, I'm sorry. It was a very funny moment. Now, he knew full well that I would not appreciate it if he'd pinched my wife's behind. But at some point, there is a line that says, this is funny, and there's a line that says, this is harassment. No one knows where the line is. Walking around naked in front of somebody, yeah, that's a line. Al Franken groping Arianna Huffington in a 2000 photo shoot. Like I said, this was something he did on a regular basis. This is important to keep in mind because Arianna Huffington, arch liberal, is not just in one picture being groped by Al Franken. She's in more than one picture being groped by Al Franken. Is it because she was afraid of Al Franken? Somehow I just don't think so. This was in the year 2000. This was before he was a senator. So Charlie Rose doesn't get a pass here with two females, Gayle King and Norah ODonnell, saying, we will not tolerate this. Charlie Rose played the role of dirty older man on CBS this morning. Is this some sort of apologist male trying to get Charlie Rose out of trouble? No, it's Jill Filipovich. CBS Morning Sex Talk tended to follow a familiar script, flirtatious women teasing a leering older man. Is there such a thing as a flirtatious woman in this particular case? Is there anything close to that? Or is she just playing the part because she's afraid that Charlie Rose will have her fired if she doesn't play the flirtatious female in front of a leering older man? How about this? How about if she doesn't play the flirtatious female in front of the leering older man? Does that mean she gets fired because she's not playing along? Does that mean that there is no such thing as an HR department at CBS where she can go? I guarantee you there is a CBS HR department. I've been there a few times myself. What I will tell you is this. I understand that men paw, grope, and are incessantly, increasingly, ridiculously rude to women, physically, verbally, mentally in some cases. But like I asked yesterday, where is the sweeping slap across the face delivered expertly by a woman who is outraged that she was just groped? If you don't know how to do it, I'm sure there's film of Maureen O'Hara doing it back in the 30s when she may have been the most beautiful woman on the planet. And Hollywood was still Hollywood, and there still was a casting couch. But Maureen O'Hara would have nothing of it. She would have nothing to do with it. She was an actress. She knew she was an actress. She was also incredibly beautiful, and she was not just an actress, but she was a movie star. She almost quit because of it. And oh, by the way, there were not very flattering things said about her and her sexuality during that time period. I'm not going to bore you with the details, but I'm sure that there are people that are a little older than, say, for example, the average person listening to this broadcast that are now nodding their head. They know what I was talking about. Over-friendly or sexual harassment? Depends on who you ask. The younger you get, the less it's friendliness and the more it's something else. The curves are basically the same. The spectrum of young versus old. Males tend to think it's okay. Females tend to think it's not. The older you get, in a lot of cases, in a lot of countries, it's less and less and less funny. Maybe it's because you've heard the jokes before. But you got to remember some things here. If you take anything from this conversation, please take this from this conversation. There are people whose lives are being destroyed over what amounts to a violation of HR policy. Is it okay that people have their lives destroyed over a violation of HR policy? I prefer to have their lives destroyed over laws that they broke, both either felonies or some misdemeanors. I think that's much more, I think that's a lot better. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I think this is somewhat overblown at some level. Because it looks to me like there's no difference here between sexual harassment and sexual crimes of a much more serious nature. Certainly when it comes to the effect that they have on people's lives. This is a non-elected, non-judicial process. This process plays out in the manufactured outrage of a mainstream media. Make no mistake, some of the people in the mainstream media that are being hammered by these policies are the people that stood up and said this was all outrageous before they were caught actually doing it themselves. The hypocrisy is thick. There is something that I do believe needs to be reinforced. And that came from Norah ODonnell. Women cannot achieve equality in the workplace or in society until there is a reckoning and a taking of responsibility. I do believe that this is a male-female equality issue in the workplace. I believe that in the workplace, you absolutely have to behave properly. But I'll be perfectly honest with you. There have been some very seriously provocative things said by women in the workplace, too. I know we don't hear about them because the men just say, they either think it's flattering or they say, here's an opportunity. Should we change that? Should our comportment change? Should men now complain about women taking shots at us as they do when they take shots at us? Should we take shots at them?
All right.
Did I miss it?
Yeah, slightly, but
I got confused.
Probably just didn't get that last little bit. That's all.
Yeah. Let's see.
The last little sentence.
Should men start reporting sexual harassment on the part of females? And should we start doing that? That is what I have to remember. Did you hear that, the Philip Brown? What do you think?
Should they start doing it?
No, should men start reporting females for this?
Yeah, but it probably wouldn't. It's probably not that much of it going that way. I don't know.
But there's some.
Yeah, sure, certainly. I don't know. This is a whole weird thing because you got some people. Somebody might feel harassed by one thing, whereas other people might not.
Yeah, I get it.
So it's like this really is the slippery slope.
It truly is. I mean, it's like this is a slippery slope. And how do all the people watching the hot mic edition of the Wells Reports? Let's see here. Let me say hello. Hello. Okay. Goodness gracious, sake, he's alive-y. I said alive-y, not saliva, just so you know. Just double checking to make sure that I don't transgress. Yeah, the microphone sounds a heck of a lot better now that I got it to stop distorting. I was going, ew, this sounds terrible. Why does it sound so bad? Then I realized it sounds bad because it should sound bad. It should sound bad. By the way, is there like a coffee pot that's burning somewhere? That just must be me. Okey dokey. Oops. Shoot. Dang it. Got the date wrong. El Craparundo. No, I didn't. How did I miss that? How did I miss that? Fix that. Why is it that it is not fixed? I did fix that. 2 ba ba bo bo bo. Ice not the snare if. Yeah.
All right, we're coming back in 20 seconds.
20 dang seconds. 20 seconds. La 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 la. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Should men now report the, shall we say, inappropriate things that women say to them in the workplace? Should that be the next stop? If someone says something suggestive or flirty, should men now immediately make their next stop the HR office? Yes or no, and why? 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. Is this something that men are just flat guilty of and we should all hang our heads for what? How long? 10 years? 20 years? Well, how long should we hang our heads? If you are somebody who is under, say, 21 years of age, keep your hands to yourself and mind your manners. Just take my advice all the way to the rest of your career. Mind your manners. Keep your hands to yourself. If you're a professional, you're going to have to start thinking about whether or not it's a good idea to start complaining about females making suggestive comments to you. They don't have any problem doing it when the table is turned. As a matter of fact, it's probably in some cases a way for them to move up the corporate chain. Now, this is not me being cynical. This is me being real. This is about reality here. By the way, President Trump has just spoken about the Alabama Senate race and Judge Roy Moore. President Trump does not want a Democrat to win next month's Alabama Senate race. Trump was pressed about embattled Republican Senate candidate Roy Moore today. In remarks at the White House, Trump noted that Moore has denied numerous allegations of sexual misconduct. He said Democrat candidate Doug Jones is a liberal who is soft on crime and soft on border security. Trump stopped short of endorsing Moore. Smart. He learns. Congressional Republican leaders have called on the former judge to drop out of the race. He is not going to do so. The people of Alabama will determine whether or not Judge Roy Moore is indeed guilty of sexual harassment of younger females. Sexual harassment has turned into a way to completely destroy the life of someone described as, say, for example, a powerful man. Men are usually more willing to cross, say, for example, a line on the basis of humor or the basis of whatever. I mean, men do that with men all the time. Certainly the kind of talk that happened between men when, say, for example, our fathers were growing up, because it was basically an all-male workplace. Those men said a lot of things that would get them fired in a blink today. But because it was actually a violation of law? No, because it's a violation of HR protocols. You know, if you break the law, you kind of sort of, well, doggone it, you're probably going to end up getting punished for it. But that's the law. Should your life be destroyed completely for something that is less than sexual assault? There is no legal law against. There's no law against it. So what do we do here? What's next? You're listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back with more coming up in a moment on the USA Radio Network.
All right, man.
That there was your basic good hour right there. Yeah. I like that one right there. Yep.
I don't sound that country, do I?
No.
Okay, good. Everybody tells me I have an accent from here. I didn't really know living in the South. I never even knew until I came here, and everybody's like, "Oh, I like how you talk."
Yep.
Yesterday, when we were disconnecting, I had like a little one of our zips that connects to Cumulus went down, and I had to. There's like this alarm going off at me, and I had to fix all that.
Wow.
That's why I was like, "All right, man."
That's why you were just, I gotta go.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's okay. That's cool.
Well, hey, I'm gonna go heat up my sandwich. You got
Go heat up your dang sandwich, buddy boy.
All right, be right back, buddy boy.
Yeah, I know.
We'll be right back.
Okay. I know. I got the date wrong. I doofused. Charlie Rose goes. Conyers believe it? Terribly, terribly funny. In kind of a sort of weird way. Let's see. This goes here. This goes. No, that's what's wrong. Okay. Affirmative action. Okay. Affirmative action. Judge trumps. Okay. Hang it a boom boodle doodle doodle doo doodle doo 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 doo. Okay, so we're finished with that. And now we need this. What do you think? Okay. Okay. Wow. Phil, how loud is it out there?
Back in 1 minute, sir.
Back in 1 minute. 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 Back in 1 minute.
All right, back in 10 seconds.
10 dang seconds. North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. The judicial branch of this government has seen fit to stand in opposition to and obstruction of the executive branch of the government based on what must be a deep state or deep state-ish feeling against President Donald Trump. We have seen judicial appointees making law, making judgments, making rulings that stand in direct defiance of not just the President of the United States, but in some cases, the separation of powers enumerated in the Constitution. This has happened again. A federal judge permanently blocked President Donald Trump's executive order to cut funding from cities that limit cooperation with U.S. immigration authorities. U.S. District Court Judge William Auric rejected the administration's argument that the executive order applies only to a relatively small pot of money and said that Trump cannot set new conditions on spending approved by Congress. The judge had previously made the same arguments in a ruling that put a temporary hold on the executive order targeting so-called sanctuary cities. The Trump administration has appealed that decision to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. The district court exceeded its authority today when it barred the president from instructing his cabinet members to enforce existing law. This, according to Department of Justice spokesman Devin O'Malley. The Justice Department will vindicate the president's lawful authority to direct the executive branch. Auric's ruling came in lawsuits brought by two California counties, San Francisco and Santa Clara. San Francisco City Attorney Dennis Herrera said the ruling was a victory for the American people and the rule of law. I would very much like to have him explain that to me, because it looks to me like he's operating in defiance of American law to the detriment of the American people. President Trump might be able to tweet whatever comes to mind, but he can't grant himself new authority because he feels like it, San Francisco City Attorney Dennis Herrera said. A lawyer for the DOJ argued during a hearing before Auric in April that the executive order applied only to a few grants that would affect less than $1 million for Santa Clara County and possibly no money for San Francisco. But the judge disagreed, saying in his rulings the order was written broadly to reach all federal grants and potentially jeopardize hundreds of millions of dollars in funding to San Francisco and Santa Clara. He cited comments by the president. This is important. Listen closely. He cited comments by the president and the attorney general as evidence the order was intended to target a wide variety of federal funding. And he said the president himself had called it a weapon to use against recalcitrant cities. So what does that have to do with anything? It's not like federal policy and federal law has not been used as a weapon against recalcitrant cities in the past. The Trump administration separately has also moved to withhold one particular law enforcement grant from sanctuary cities, which prompted a new round of lawsuits that are pending. The first question I have to ask you is this. Should a city that refuses to enforce federal law be the recipient of federal funding? Yes or no, and why? 844-927-6691. 844-927-6691. This seems pretty simple to me. If indeed a city refuses to enforce federal law, it's my understanding that they should not have any kind of hold whatsoever on federal money. Those laws were passed in a legislature by representatives of we, the people of the United States. They're not something that you can just throw away if you happen to disagree with them. Or are they? To me, this is completely clear cut. This is clear cut. Once again, the judge, William Auric. What do we know about William Auric III? He sits on the bench of the Northern District of California. He'd issued an injunction against the Trump administration after the city of San Francisco and county of Santa Clara sued over the president's plan to withhold federal funds from municipalities that harbor illegal immigrants. The ruling from U.S. District Judge William Auric III in San Francisco and that said that Trump's order targeting broad categories of federal funding for sanctuary governments and that plaintiffs challenging the order were likely to succeed in proving it unconstitutional. Why do we have a legislative branch if nothing that they are able to provide, the government, can be held on the books as actual law to be enforced by the executive branch? This just doesn't comport. This decision by District Judge William Auric III in San Francisco will block the measure for now. But there's more about this. The same judge issued a restraining order in 2015 against the advocacy group responsible for undercover videos purporting to show Planned Parenthood employees plotting to sell baby organs. I want you to understand just exactly who this guy is. Judge Auric, who is 63, has sent many thousands of or hundreds of thousands of dollars to various Democrat candidates over the years. The Federalist has found that Judge Auric raised at least $200,000 for President Obama and donated more than $30,000 of his personal funds to groups or to the president directly. A New York prosecutor is saying that lower level crimes should not be a reason for deportation. If you are an illegal immigrant, if you are an illegal alien in the United States, you've already broken a more serious law than, say, for example, a more petty law. You've broken a federal misdemeanor. Again, that this district attorney says that people shouldn't be deported because for some reason their crimes aren't sufficiently bad enough, are making it possible for illegal immigrants around the country to stay and rape daughters, mothers, sisters, on a near uncompromising basis, every week to 10 days, everywhere in the United States. So a judge who has raised hundreds of thousands of dollars for the president, hundreds of thousands of dollars, now makes for the president of the United States, by the way, that was President Obama, not President Trump. He has given out, he raised at least $200,000 for President Obama and donated more than $30,000 himself. And now he's taking shots at President Trump. And he's also letting his politics rule the day because there is nothing that is unconstitutional in any way, shape, or form about sending people back across that border or anything else that doesn't belong in these United States. So former U.S. District Judge, current U.S. District Judge William Auric III has made a ruling that stands in the way of national security, the executive branch of the United States doing its job, what in heaven's name are we doing here? And by the way, let's talk a little bit about the judge's language, talking about how you can't use federal funding as a weapon. Under the Clean Air Act, the Environmental Protection Agency is required to impose sanctions on areas that have been determined not to have submitted or implemented adequate plans to attain air quality standards. The Clean Air Act authorizes EPA to use two types of sanctions: withholding of certain federal highway funds and imposing what are called 2-to-1 offsets on new or modified stationary sources of air pollution. So in other words, and I remember a long time ago that when states were slow to adopt California's anti-smog laws. Now remember, this was the state of California because they had smoggy cities. And man, LA was a nightmare. What they said is that you could only have certain cars shipped into California. Cars that comported with the California Air Resources Board. So that agency worked in California for years and years and years and years. And what ended up happening is that the federal government then enacted most of their regulations because there were two kinds of cars in America being built: California compliant cars and non-California compliant cars. And so the federal government said that everybody's going to comport to California technology and California lawmaking. And there were states that said, you know what, we're not going to do that. And you're not going to believe this, but their highway funding was cut before you could say, excuse me? I don't know. I just look at this and go, not so much. This is a clear violation of the Constitution. How is it that someone who has sworn to uphold and protect the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, legal and illegal in the case of a judge, how come he's able to do this and get away with it? This is the Wells Report on USA Radio Network. I'll be back.
All righty.
Okey dokey. I snot
right,
the
man.
snare.
You got about 30 seconds.
That means I have time to close the door, which I did not do.
Here we go.
Hello. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number again is 844-927-6691. I have a question for you. Should a judge who refuses to properly enforce the law be impeached? The answer is yes. Judge William Auric III, who crazily enough was appointed to the bench in 2013 by President Obama, has blocked President Trump's order to withhold federal funds from sanctuary cities. He can't do that. It's none of his business. There's not a constitutional issue in this at any possible level. This money goes to cities who comport with federal law. If you do not choose to comport with federal law, enforce federal law, why should you have federal money? This is not something that is alien to people's understandings or imagination or even precedents in the United States. This guy is clearly a President Obama operative. Anti-Trump forces, anti-President Trump forces. And remember, they lost the election, by the way, are obstructing this president and the job we elected him to do. Is that not the case? And then there's this. Judge William Auric III is clearly a politician. Why don't we elect judges in this country? Why don't we elect judges? Why don't we, the people, elect judges? Clearly, once again, politicians who have taken the process away from the people, held it to themselves. The president appoints these federal judges. The Senate of the United States advises and consents. And these people are given a non-elected job whereby they are impaneled to not enforce but interpret the law. In the federal bench, this is about things concerning constitutionality. Why are they resorting to politics to find their decisions? This is about law. In America, when you break a federal law, part of the punishment has always been a fine. Are we saying that laws that are not followed by sanctuary cities, that is a crime? Are we saying that we don't fine those cities for breaking the law? Is that what we're saying? Because that's all this is. No, this gets down to judges wanting to play politics. Well, if they want to play politics, I suggest we play politics with them. I suggest that all federal judges, henceforth and forever, including the Supreme Court of the United States, be elected by the people, because clearly politicians are not up to the task of finding people who actually rule on law. Judge Auric rules on politics. He's got hundreds of thousands of reasons behind him to rule on politics. He uses his political mind, not his legal one. He should be removed from the bench, and his successors should be elected. Let's just put this out in the open. Again, the people of the United States taking power away from politicians who cannot properly administer it. Politicians cannot possibly pick real jurists. As Thomas Jefferson famously said, only the American people know what freedom and liberty is. Only the American people know who the President of the United States should be. Our nation has a rich history of taking power away from our government that they don't handle properly. And could there be a better example of mishandled power than politicians attempting to pick federal judges? When you have a federal judge supermarket out there, a federal judge supermarket where people shop cases based on politics, I say you have a political judiciary, not an apolitical one. If it's going to be an apolitical judiciary, then by all means, let's elect these judges. All of them. Somebody tell me that I'm doing it wrong. Somebody tell me that this is a bad idea. Tell me why. Bring truth with you. And then bring a solution. This is the Wells Report. You're listening to the USA Radio Network. Woohoo!
All righty, sir. Sounding good. All right, man. Have a good one. All righty, sir.
Right. No, I get it. I get it. Redcap Stephen, hello. How are you, my friend?
Redcap Steven. That must be a MAGA hat.
No, Redcap Stephen is somebody who has listened to me for over 10 years.
Okay, so he was a long way before the MAGA.
Yeah, he was way, yeah. Yeah. Well, come to think of it, Stephen, is that the MAGA hat that's the red cap? He's always worn a red hat. He keeps telling me that so that I would know that it was him, because he always used to show up at my remotes.
Oh, I got you.
And then he got the feeling that for whatever reason that I wasn't recognizing that it was him when he would be in our chat room. And the reason that he would think that is because I didn't recognize it was him in the chat room.
Oh, okay. So the red cap's the idea.
Yeah. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Brilliant. Here we go, man. 5 seconds. Buddy.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. Something happened today that's very interesting to me. The Justice Department, remember, the Attorney General of the United States is former Alabama Senator Jeff Sessions. The Justice Department is actively investigating Harvard University's use of race in its admissions policies and has concluded the school is out of compliance with federal law. This according to documents obtained by CNN. The Justice Department's battle with Harvard potentially sets the stage for the first major legal test of affirmative action under the Trump administration. Last year, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that race can be one of among many factors universities use in making admission decisions. 2 letters from the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division indicate that Harvard has challenged the department's authority to investigate, and further state that if a school fails to provide documents to the department by December 1st, the agency may file a lawsuit against the school. Harvard's attorney, Seth Waxman, did not immediately return CNN's request for information. This interest by the Justice Department, by the way, stems from a 2015 federal complaint that accuses the school of discriminating against Asian Americans in admissions. When the New York Times reported in August that the Justice Department was looking for lawyers to work on possible litigation related to intentional race-based discrimination in college and university admissions, the department said that posting was related to an ongoing case rolled over from the Obama administration. The posting sought volunteers to investigate one administrative complaint filed by a coalition of 64 Asian American associations in May of 2015 that the prior administration left unresolved, said Justice Department spokeswoman Sarah Isger Flores. The complaint alleges that racial discrimination against Asian Americans in a university's administration policy and practices. This Department of Justice has not received or issued any directive, moratorium, memorandum, initiative, or policy related to university administrations or admissions in general. The Department of Justice is committed to protecting all Americans from all forms of illegal race-based discrimination, she said. Supporters of affirmative action in college admissions say that it levels the playing field in higher education by welcoming traditionally excluded groups like minority students, whereas its critics say the practice favors one group over another based on race instead of academic achievement. There are a lot of basic questions, like this one. Is affirmative action actually institutionalized political racism? Is there even still a need for race-based federal laws and programs? And there is something else that I want to put out here on the table, and I want some discussion on it if you are not too busy, and that's this. Racism in America is not something that is the, shall we use, legal and societal plaything of all minority groups. Now, there can be racism among all minority groups and so on and so forth, but when it comes down to actual federal remedying law regarding racism, it's about one particular minority. That minority being African Americans. Brought to this country as slaves and subject to the worst possible racism in the history of the human endeavor. Although the Jews may say the racism against them that led to 6 million of their fellow family members being destroyed in the Holocaust ranks right up there. The only thing that I can say is that, yeah, I hear you, but at some point there probably is going to be some kind of a debate between the 6 million lost in the Second World War by a German maniac and the 55 million that have been lost thanks to Planned Parenthood when it comes to the African American experience in the United States. The Civil Rights Law of 1964 was to benefit African Americans, not Asian Americans, not Hispanic Americans. African Americans. The racism that has been shown to African Americans over the years is palpable. It has been economically crippling. And yes, in the case of Harvard and any other university in the United States, except for the traditional black universities, it has been a rampant abuse of knowledge, in my view. I believe that knowledge belongs to everyone, regardless of the color of your skin, your gender, no matter which of the 68,221 genders there happens to be right now. But I do want to make clear that African Americans have taken the obvious brunt of not one, but two crimes against humanity focused on them over the centuries that they've been in the United States. The crimes against humanity are slavery and degenerate, horrifying, destructive, pathological bigotry. Now, politics over the years has turned this into, well, anybody that is a minority in the United States has the same access to the same civil rights law that African Americans do. I find that repulsive. And the reason I find that repulsive is that I still am trying to go back in the history of the United States of America and find any level of slavery that was perpetrated against Hispanic Americans in this country. I'm still trying to find the destruction of the entire civilization of Asian Americans. That's what I'm trying to figure out here. I know why it happened. It happened because there is a political party who has discovered political success in the division of Americans. But these laws that were passed to benefit African Americans as race law in America, the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, all of these laws were designed to bring Americans together, not to split them apart. That's a political process for political effect by one political party. Now, I say one political party, but then again, I can then take this entire process into the districting, the redistricting process, or the districting process for congressional districts in the United States. The reason that these districts look like some sort of strange ink blot in most states in America is because of institutional racism in the political process, which, by the way, feeds the entire wolf of racism in the United States. Once again, the districting process based on race because of votes in those districts, again, is more divisive politics. And that, by the way, is bipartisan. There would be people who argue that say, well, John David, if you're in a situation where what you do is you take all these districts and you try to create racial equality in all these districts, then there's a reason for that. Well, just exactly what does racial equality look like? In the United States of America, African Americans represent 13% of Americans in this country. 13%. Should every congressional district therefore reflect 13%? Or should every district represented in the United States be districted in such a way so that 13% of the people elected would have a better chance of being African American? And if indeed you do that, is that not institutionalized racism? In my way of thinking, when it comes to Harvard being sued by the Department of Justice because of the racial picking of the students based on whether or not there are enough Asians in Harvard, I think that's I think that has zero merit. Zero merit completely. I think that the people that have the grades to go to college will go to college that they can either afford or that they should find themselves the most comfortable in, or what have you. Genius will find a way to succeed beyond the circumstances under which it is educated at all times and in all places because of human creativity and intelligence. I find it absolutely ridiculous that major universities in the United States don't take the very best. But what we have learned is that there is a racial process against African Americans in the United States among these large universities. It can be proven day in, day out, day in, day out, day in, day out. But the same minority process, quote unquote minority process, the same racial process that applies to everyone that isn't white, creates its own kind of racism This is the part of white privilege that is never discussed. The privilege of going to East Sawgrass State University because you weren't able to get a position at, say, for example, the University of Texas because you didn't have the right color skin. That sounds like discrimination to me. That sounds like racism to me, but the person that we're talking about that has to go to East Sawgrass State happens to be a white kid. So where do we go on this? Is affirmative action institutionalized racism? Has racism in the United States morphed into a get out of reality free card for anybody that isn't white? Is there still a need for race-based federal laws and programs? Yeah. For African Americans. What are your thoughts on this? 844-927-6691. Where do you stand on these issues? Do you see where I'm coming from? Do you have any questions as to where I stand? This is the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
Alrighty. that white privilege is a weird thing, man. Like the
white privilege of not being able to get anywhere based on a circumstance where there's someone.
I mean, it's like I can kind of understand sort of what they mean when they say that, but it doesn't apply across the board. Like,
it doesn't apply across the board.
Yeah,
it doesn't.
Not every white person gets this privilege that they talk about.
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah.
See, I mean, you cannot, if you are, say, for example, a Democrat Party, you cannot say, whoa, sounds like KBDT lost the feed. What?
What's that? Is that a station in Texas?
That's a station in Dallas. That's our station. Lost the feed.
Weird. Let me check the network. It looks like we're still broadcasting.
Hang on. Is this what you're playing? Andro 400? Mike, are you playing Andro 400? Yeah.
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's what we're playing. We're okay.
Okay. Yeah, luckily they had that written into the description on the commercial Andro 400.
Good. All right then.
Yeah, but the white privilege thing is very crazy. Like they want to act like every white person just has it, but it's not true.
Well, actually it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang on one second. I'm going to answer this call.
Go ahead. Bruce from Las Vegas. Bruce from Las Vegas. Bruce from Las Vegas in the morning. Ding dong, the bells are gonna try.
All right, man. You got 10 seconds.
Hey.
Stuff's going crazy again.
Good.
It's on the air, though. Nothing's wrong with that.
All right, cool. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 86, make that 844-927-6691. I knew there was a 66 in there somewhere. By the way, for those people who did not listen to yesterday's edition of the Wells Report, I reported on that day, yesterday, that indeed a certain Bill de Blasio, who is the current mayor of New York, went to Iowa to spread the good word of progressive communism to the Corn Belt state, or whatever. What is it? Anyway. I just want you to know exactly what you're getting when you start talking about the possibility of Bill de Blasio as, say, for example, a presidential candidate for the Democrats Socialist Communists in 2018. Black Friday kicks off the official start of the holiday shopping season. Store managers are likely busy scheduling staff for early openings and late closings beginning on Thanksgiving Day. That's good for shoppers and great for workers looking to make cash during the holidays. Unfortunately, lawmakers and advocates are pushing for reforms that could actually remove flexibility in scheduling. Expanded shopping hours call for employers to schedule employees based on demand. In some states, that flexibility is about to disappear. New York is set to implement, New York, who, is being run by Bill de Blasio. New York is set to implement a new proposed rule which would make sweeping changes to how much notice to work employers in retail and fast foods must provide to their employees. The proposed regulations would limit employers' ability to schedule employees for on-call shifts and require that they pay employees for canceled shifts and newly issued shifts. So in other words, it's a way for real honest to goodness businesses to pay people for work they did not do. Great, huh? Let me get to Dean, who's on the road in Oklahoma. How's it going, man? Thanks very much for listening. Welcome to the Wells Report.
Well, thank you for having me, brother. I really appreciated your comments. I don't normally listen to you because I'm on the road. I've never heard your show before, but as I heard your commentary on the need or the use for affirmative action, as an African-American male, I couldn't wholeheartedly agree more. I was raised to be Republican. My father was the super Republican, party of Lincoln. And I was raised in California. And I've seen the evil of affirmative action, but I also have seen the need of affirmative action. And so I agree with you that it had a specific use, and it was for uniting, but instead it's been used as a political football and a form of slavery. And so, please don't misunderstand what I mean, but I really think they're using it not only to divide, but to keep African Americans, in a sense, down at the same time while proclaiming to help them.
In that, Dean, what you describe is the near perfect political schmooze in a way that provides the appearance of someone doing their absolute dead level best to alter what is a crime against humanity. I mean, your people come to the United States as slaves, or to the American continent as slaves, your entire civilization destroyed. Does that require a caring and remorseful nation to do something to repay that incredible damage? You're dang right. The bigotry that went with it is equal when it comes to what this country, a remorseful and responsible country, should do. But to take that politically and then turn it into, well, anybody that doesn't look like, say, for example, the Pilgrims, anybody that doesn't look like the Pilgrims, you've been the victims of the same kind of bigotry. I think that's infuriating. on so many levels. It's just unbelievable. You're listening to the Welsh Report. This is the USA Radio Network. Thank Dean for that for me. Thank Dean. That was a great call. Thank him.
All right, will do.
Would you please?
All right. Yeah, I usually do that, man. I just
Yeah, I know.
the head guy from the network had walked in here like right then,
No, it's okay. What did he say?
and he was trying to schmooze.
He's trying to schmooze? It's okay to schmooze. Schmoozing is good.
Occasionally, they bring in people, I guess, to show them around, and like it's kind of uncomfortable when they do it because I'm like, I'm used to doing my own thing and running everything.
Sure.
Nobody in here, and then they want to come. It's just weird when you got somebody looking over your shoulder.
Yep.
And I'm not the biggest schmoozer. Not good at it, I guess.
You get better with age.
Yeah. Better than I was 10 years ago.
And it's a useful skill.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. All right.
You know what I miss? I miss the 140 character tweet.
Oh yeah. Oh, they're longer.
I really do.
Yeah.
I really miss the 140 character because I got to the point where I could communicate in complete sentences with punctuation.
Uh-huh.
And get a point across. But then again, I'm a top 40 jock, so I would learn how to do that.
Yeah. That's I use more Instagram than Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I like Instagram. I do.
Because I don't really like some people like write out more than I do. I don't post much. I just look at other people's posts.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. But Twitter is good, like especially when stuff is going on, like when that Las Vegas thing was happening,
Yeah.
the shooting, and like when the hurricanes down there where y'all are in Houston. I mean, the hurricane hit Houston and all that. Like, I was watching on Twitter when they were tearing up Joel Osteen, man. Like, they were going after Joel Osteen because they said because he didn't open his church quick enough or something.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, that was pretty harsh.
Yeah, people were brutal to him.
That was pretty harsh.
They were even posting pictures of his house. Like, if you're a refugee or if you're put out by the hurricane, go to this house.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I was like, man.
Wow.
I'll tell you what, I would like to work for the guy that just came in here. His name's Floyd Brown.
Yeah.
And he's like he's also works with Livable Media down the
Yes.
street. I tell you what, that would be a cool job to write for them.
Have you talked to him?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit, but not. I haven't talked to him about that, but I just know that their company has like really good benefits and good. I don't know if I'm good enough. I don't know if I'm good enough at writing that much. Like, I'm good at writing a little bit, but I don't know if I could write a big article every day. Well,
Golly, what?
nothing. Some of my coworkers are kind of funny.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, I don't know. They just have a unique perspective. Let me put it that way.
A unique you perspective.
Maybe limited.
Who is that?
A guy named Dan.
Hi, Dan.
He says hi, Dan.
Hey, tell David.
He says hi back.
Dano.
I know you didn't mean nothing, Dan. You're good. But just watch how we phrase things. It sounds like you're trying to put people down. And I'm not from suburbs like the rest of these cats.
That's right. Streets.
No, it ain't that. It's just I don't take kindly to people talking down. I understand criticism, but you don't call somebody stupid. No, I'm in here talking about the livable thing, and I was like, I don't know if I write well enough to do this. And he goes, yeah. I said something like, you definitely don't. I'm like, and he wasn't joking either. That's
I
could take a joke. Now he started joking when I called him on it. It's all good. We got 45 seconds, man.
45 seconds.
It's hard to be chained in here for 6 hours a day.
It's hard to be what?
Chained in this room for 6 hours a day.
Yeah, that's a long period of time. It's hard.
Yeah. Turn the light.
All right, here we go.
North to south, coast to coast. This is the Wells Report. I'm John David Wells. Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691, 844-927-6691. It was a shocking tragedy. It was hard to believe. I remember hearing about it and could not wrap my mind around the fact that so many had been killed and so many had been wounded in a place I used to live, in a concert venue that was well known to me. And that was, of course, the Las Vegas shooting where 58 died, hundreds were injured. Some 450 are now filing lawsuits of various kinds against various people. MGM Gaming leading the list, as they are the owners of Mandalay Bay. Some people have filed lawsuits against the operator of the hotel. Some people have filed lawsuits against those who are responsible for the bump fire stock that made it possible to fire the weapons used by Stephen Paddock to fire a very high rate of fire. The crux of the lawsuit arguments is that MGM and the Mandalay Bay failed to take preventative measures that might have foiled the attack. Plaintiffs argue that staff members should have been better trained to spot red flags with Paddock. Over the 3 days between the time when Paddock checked into the hotel and fired from his window at a concert across the street, he took at least 10 suitcases filled with firearms into his room. Police officials said Paddock also constructed an elaborate surveillance system in the hotel, placing 2 cameras in the hallways outside his suite, one on a service cart, as well as a camera in his door's peephole. In October, the Nevada Supreme Court found that MGM could be liable in a 2010 assault on a California couple at one of the company's hotels. The Las Vegas Review-Journal reported that the court had ruled the attack was foreseeable because there had been similar cases of violence at that hotel. The question of whether the Las Vegas shooting was foreseeable is at the center of the Mandalay Bay lawsuit. With several high-profile mass shootings having taken place in the U.S. before the Las Vegas shooting, attorneys may argue that the hotels and other venues should now expand measures to try to prevent them. Foreseeability is one of the key components of liability, said Dick Hudak, a managing partner of Resort Security Consulting. Heidi Lee Feldman, a professor at Georgetown Law School, says it's entirely feasible that an attorney would make this argument based on the fact that mass shootings have taken place in other entertainment venues. If Congress isn't regulating gun ownership, it's going to be private parties. Who ends up regulating their own premises, said Feldman. Can you see where this is going? This is an attempt to create some sort of legal precedent to control weapons in private premises by using liability law. That's where this is going. The problem is that, once again, what you're doing is you're taking weapons out of the hands of, say, for example, somebody who was a hotel guest right down the hallway. What if they're in a position of seeing maybe one of these suitcases fall open with all the weapons spilling out on the floor? You know what I would do? If I saw that, I would immediately draw my weapon. I would say, freeze. Go absolutely, do not make a move or I will blow you to Mars. And then what I would do is go to the nearest fire. I'd go to the nearest fire alarm and I'd pull it. And I would hold that guy under weapons fire. I would hold him under my weapon until the police got there. That's what I would do. However, if indeed these people are successful, I would be forced as a law-abiding citizen to confront someone that had just spilled an entire suitcase full of weapons out on the floor of a hotel. What would I do? Pretend not to notice? Would I then just turn on my heel and get back to the elevator? Would I walk? Only to be shot in the back by a guy who suddenly realized, oh, wait, he's a witness. Or would I run, tipping my hand, and get shot in the back because, well, the guy would realize that I was a witness? Obviously, this person had thought about this ahead of time. So where does this go? If you are a jury on this trial, if you're a juror on this trial, do you find that the hotel was somehow lacking in keeping track of what the guests of the hotel brought into their rooms? Are we now going to have a private security firm going through everybody's bags before they check into a hotel? Is that where this is going? So if you're a juror and you're in Las Vegas, an entire town built on people coming and visiting and staying in hotel rooms, are you going to destroy the entire town by forcing people to open their suitcases before they're shown to their rooms? And by the way, not for nothing, I want to make this completely plain. I have lived in Las Vegas. I lived there for over a dozen years. You don't want any part of looking inside what people bring in their luggage when they go to Las Vegas. You don't. Because the first thing out of your mouth was, I didn't realize they made a folding pitchfork, and I didn't realize you could use a pitchfork for that. Once you've gone through that, once you've crossed that Rubicon, you're never the same. Once again, the people who have gone to Las Vegas and realized that there's real wisdom in the entire term that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. Oh, just saying. Dick Hudak, who says that foreseeability is one of the key components of liability. Remember, he is a partner of Resort Security Consulting. It's his business to find liability issues to sell so that his company can come in and save them from the liability issue. I guarantee you that I didn't think about somebody breaking out the windows of the Mandalay Bay and showering gunfire down on a crowd enjoying a country concert. I never thought of it at all. My worst case scenario was 12 people inside the lobby of one of those great big hotels when it was filled with 5,000 to 6,000 people, and they're that big, and there are crowds that big inside them, popping off sarin gas grenades and killing everybody in the room. Everyone. But I never thought that a sniper would shower down what is all intents and purposes automatic fire on a concert venue. So if I was a juror in Las Vegas, Nevada, I wouldn't fine for the people that are filing these lawsuits. Of course, it doesn't really make any difference because the lawyers involved have already collected, I don't know, $1,500, $2,000 from 450 people. They've already had their payday. In a spasm of non-thinking, the first jury who hears this case may indeed fine for the plaintiffs. Somehow that MGM and Mandalay Bay should have gleaned some kind of knowledge that somebody would essentially be a sniper from the hotel room that they occupied, that the shooter occupied. But it will be overturned on appeal, and it should be. As a matter of fact, it should never get to an appeals court at all. There are evil people in the world. To somehow make it absolutely mandatory that a hotel be able to identify someone who would break out two windows of two hotel rooms and shower automatic gunfire down on a helpless crowd. To suddenly decide that that's the threat that they have to guard against from now till time immemorial is an unworkable and foolish idea. The only thing that could happen is that you can make it possible for someone to, again, smuggle arms into the Mandalay Bay and hold everyone in that entire hotel hostage while you blast away at the concert venue downstairs. My friends, I realize that this was a tragedy. I realize it was savage. I realize the actual horrifying trauma that is now part of the lives of the people who were there at that hotel and in that concert venue. I realize all that. But this is not where you end up taking someone who, in good faith, runs a hotel for the sake of entertaining the masses in America's entertainment capital, maybe the world's entertainment capital. This is not where you make that decision. Now, does that mean you can't do anything for the future? Yeah, in point of fact, you can. In point of fact, you could have good guys with weapons overlooking concert venues, looking for people with bad guys with weapons. You can do that, and you should do that. As I was saying, the main grandstand was facing away from the Mandalay Bay Hotel. On the outside of the venue, you could have put a small platform with SWAT-trained officers that did have fully automatic weaponry for a purpose, along with a couple of snipers. And when suddenly somebody broke a window out of the Mandalay Bay, you go, what's that all about? And somebody with binoculars looks. But when somebody breaks out the other window, you start shooting from that platform. And you start filling those rooms with fire. And that's how you stop another mass shooting in America. That's how you get it done. That's what Dick Hudak ought to be talking about, instead of trying to make life impossible for Las Vegas hotel operators. This is the Wells Report on the USA Radio Network.
All righty. Sounding good.
Thanks, man. Dean on the road to Oklahoma. Dean is the caller of the show.
Let me get him off of there. Let me get that info out of there.
Yeah, I think what I did was I clicked on that information and put it back up there.
Yeah.
And I realized I had done that.
But that guy that called right then when you said that,
yeah,
he was calling for a show that happens later on, and he was I guess he just figured that he would call in and get a. He was calling for Wayne's show.
Well, you tell him that I hate him.
Wasn't even. Yeah, I ain't gonna tell him that, but I told him in so many words. I was like, "Hey, man, Wayne's not on right now, but where are you?" First, I asked him where you listen to. He said he's watching Newsmax, and that's how I knew that he wasn't listening to us.
What the hell is going on? Oh, hang on. That's an accident right below me. I know I said below me. I don't know where they're going. Get out of his way. Boneheadna. Boneheadna. You're supposed to pull to your right. Get out of the way. Attaboy. Well done. That's how you do it. Ladder truck. See where he goes. Turning. No, yes, he is turning. He's turning left. And where is he going now? Diggy. Diggy. Oh, he's going back the other way. Okay. And then he turned off his lights and siren because he was canceled. Well, there you go. Ha 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 ha. Doo-da day.
It's crazy how one judge can just stop things that the president does.
If they keep doing this, they're going to be elected.
Yeah.
That's all there is to it.
Well, aren't local judges elected already? Don't we elect local judges now?
Texas elects all their judges.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, it sounds like we need to be like Texas then.
Yes, sir. That's what I would do. That's what I would say.
Yeah. Alrighty, sir. You got 10 seconds.
10 dang seconds. 10 seconds, the Philip Brown. 10 seconds. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number again is 844-927-6691. While we're on the subject of terrorism, and yes, the Las Vegas attack was terror. German police today have arrested 6 Syrian nationals. They are suspected of planning a terrorist attack on a German Christmas market. Prosecutors in Frankfurt say the 6 Syrians who had all applied for asylum in Germany, are suspected of being members of the foreign terrorist organization that calls itself Islamic State. This according to Reuters. The accused are also suspected of having planned an attack against a public target in Germany using either weapons or explosives. According to German public broadcaster Hessischer Rundfunk, according to that public broadcaster who cited sources close to the investigations, the group planned an attack on a Christmas market in the city of Essen in North Rhine-Westphalia, although this has not been confirmed by prosecutors. 500 policemen in 4 different federal states were involved in the raids in which the men, said to be aged between 20 and 28, were arrested, between the ages of 20 and 28. 4 of the suspects arrived in Germany in December of 2014, the other 2 in the following years. The arrest comes 1 month before the first anniversary of a Christmas market attack in Berlin that was carried out by a failed Tunisian asylum seeker and killed 12 people. This is what happens when you allow politicians to control immigration into your country. This is what happens when you allow politicians to have control over immigration into your country. What we are seeing and what we have seen in the last 10 plus years is we have seen politicians screwing up a great deal of life just about everywhere on the planet. Europe has been invaded in every possible sense of the word by Muslims from all over the Middle East. This was a function of the Arab Spring. It was a demographic migration that was truly remarkable. Truly remarkable. It was very good and very well organized and very effective. And it was made possible by politicians who weren't paying attention. Oh, yeah, the politicians were completely correct. Oh, yeah, most of these people are just fine. The only people that are not just fine are the terrorists that want to kill an entire marketplace filled with Christians celebrating Christmas. Those are the only ones you really have to worry about. Well, they took another 6 off the market today. I wonder how many more there are. Which leads me to the question that I have for you. As you go about your Christmas revelry, as you go about celebrating the second most important holiday in the Christian calendar, are you going to be vigilant against attack on you and your family and your person? In point of fact, I am. I am going to be vigilant like I always am. The reason is because I understand that there are people out there that are possessed of great evil. And in being possessed of great evil, they are willing to destroy one of the world's great religions for the sake of using it as a predicate for their murderous bloodlust. It is my intention to continue doing what I've always said I would do. Protect my family and my wife, as important persons in the United States are often protected. This is the Wells Report. You're listening to the USA Radio Network.
All right, one more down.
Yes, sir.
That was one more down. You got two more to go, but
I got two more to go.
the thing I was going to ask you, so I don't really get a break that much between now and the end of Wayne show.
Yeah.
But so I was going to say, when we start the next segment, which is the longer one, I believe.
Yes.
The 14 one. Do you mind if I step away for like 1 minute once you start talking, and I'll come right back? Like I'm talking about just I'm going to have somebody observing the board.
Crying out loud.
I just don't get a break for like 6 minutes. I'm just trying to step outside and puff the cigarette a couple times.
Go smoke.
Oh, okay. Well,
would you please go smoke?
I'm going to have my friend observing.
Go smoke.
Right now.
Smoke.
Right now. I'll be right back.
Okay, bye.
All right.
Oh. As much as I can get my hands on, I think that in drive time, we need to fill up the bottom of the hour with the national newscast and then a local newscast that fills that up. I realize it costs us money, but yeah, that's exactly right. I don't know. I don't think there's a wreck. Actually, I think they fixed it. Yeah. God, I love doing this show. I love the excitement. I love the excitement that it might that people all over the country might be hearing it.
They are.
I just man, it's so cool. Are they? Wow. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. How much time do I have? Does anybody know? I got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes, minute and a half. I have to find this piece of, wait, hold on. I know what I need. I need YouTube. YouTube? Don't go. It's good to see you. Good to see you.
All right, man. You got 30 seconds.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Here we go.
You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691. I am someone who has, as you know, been looking very, very hard at the use of artificial intelligence as an anti-human tool. And it's now getting to the point where someone has actually come up with a scenario whereby a killer robot could actually take your life.
It's flying itself. Its processor can react 100 times faster than a human.
Now, what he's talking about is he's talking about one of these little drones, you know, the little four-bladed drones that your kid's probably playing with right now. You know, the battery-operated one. He's talking about a drone that's flying around him. He's on stage, this spokesperson. He's on stage, and what he's doing is he's showing a little drone that's flying around him.
The stochastic motion is an anti-sniper feature.
Now, what he's talking about there is he's talking about this small little drone dropping down and moving in various angles in various ways so that it would be difficult, if not impossible, to shoot out of the air.
Just like...
Now, what he also showed you was he tried to lunge to grab it out of the air, but it wasn't that the pilot of this drone was able to move it out of the way. This is a drone that is sensing its environment through cameras and plugged into artificial intelligence. This artificial intelligence flew the little drone out of the way. Okay? So that's how that was. Listen to this.
Just like any mobile device these days, it has cameras and sensors, and just like your phones and social media apps, it does facial recognition. Inside here is 3 grams of shaped explosive.
Let me explain what he's talking about now. This small drone, already pre-programmed, not being flown by a pilot, flying itself, has in its center 3 grams of what is probably something like C4. C4 is a plastic explosive. 3 grams would be about the size of half a stick of bubble gum. You know, the bubble gum that you wrap up, you know, that has the 2 sides with the comic in it, the pink bubble gum. You cut that in half, and that's about the amount of C4 in what's called a shaped charge. Shaped charges are how you take a very small amount of explosive and use it to blow up, in some cases, an entire tank. What I mean by that is this. If you can take what looks like a soup can that has in the bottom of it an inverted cone made out of copper usually, if you pack that with C4 plastic explosive somewhere in the vicinity of a pound or 2 pounds, then you put a blasting cap in the end of it, put it up against a tank, say for example an M60 tank with some 3 inches of armor steel. You touch off the explosive, and what happens is that the cone, the inverted cone, so the point is pointing up, is crushed down into a slug of molten copper, which is blown right through the steel of the tank and bounces around inside the tank's cupola, killing everybody inside. Also, by the way, touching off all of the ordnance, all the shells that they fire from their main gun, all the ammunition from all the machine guns. It looks like a giant steel volcano. So that shape charge only has a gram's worth of C4 in it, but we know that it can blow this small little slug of metal, probably copper, straight down away from the explosive. I wonder what you could do with that.
This is how it works.
He throws the drone out into the crowd.
Did you see that?
The drone,
Little bang is enough to penetrate the skull and destroy the contents.
so the drone flies out into the crowd, comes around and focuses on a mannequin, and through facial recognition realizes that that's its target, flies towards it just as it gets to that mannequin's forehead. It faces the shape charge explosive toward the center of the person's skull, hits it, touches it off, and blows a hole in the mannequin's head that is probably, and it creates a wound channel that's probably 6 to 7 inches deep, which destroys the person's brain. There's a guy named Stuart Russell. He is a professor of artificial intelligence at the University of California, Berkeley. We tried to get in touch with him today. We have not been successful in getting a hold of him. He said that allowing machines to kill humans would endanger freedom and security. It would actually be worse than that. These killer robots are capable of using facial recognition to pick out a particular person in a particular spot at a particular time. There's no way you'd be able to stop them. There's no way you could stop one. Professor Russell says that we have to find some way to stop machines from killing humans. The film is entitled Slaughter Bots. It shows a dystopian future where tiny drones are programmed to carry out mass killings. If you saw the latest Star Trek film, you saw these small drones that operated very much like a swarm of bees that were totally and completely impervious to any kind of shielding, and were hard enough and fast enough to punch holes in any particular spaceship, including the Enterprise, which it did, destroying the aircraft, destroying the spacecraft. Imagine what you could do with 10,000 of these little drones. You could kill all the men in a room, all the women in a room, all the white people in a room, all the non-white people in a room. There would be nothing that they could do about it. This is a real threat. There are militaries that are working on using this technology in this way at this moment. This is not a drill. This is not a dream. This is a complete reality. This is something that many of the world's physicists are warning us about as we plunge headlong into creating artificially intelligent machines and give them the mission of designing other artificially intelligent machines. I was talking to our esteemed executive producer, the Philip Brown, who said, this is really esoteric. This is not something that people need to worry about. Yeah, it is. Now, I agree 5 years ago when I started talking about this, when I listened to Professor Stephen Hawking say that the next great threat against human beings would be our own technology. I said, there's nothing in place to stop it. And there's still nothing in place to stop it. We now have a phone where the inventors say, hey, it's got facial recognition in it. Hey, that's great. What else can they use this technology for? We talk about Google Glass. That keeps a running video of everything that you encounter, every person, every place, dutifully recording the time and the place, down to an 8-place GPS location. And with the actual data, you can use the facial recognition to identify every face in the video. Before they stopped giving these Google Glasses out to people, I remember seeing someone in a Starbucks that I used to go to. This is when I started wearing a baseball cap everywhere I went so I could cover my face. I suppose that a baseball cap would still be kind of useful with one of these slaughter bots flying around you. I suppose that could be the case. But you can see this piece of video, and you should. As a matter of fact, what you should do is you should, after the end of this show, go check it out. It's called Slaughterbots. You can find it on YouTube. It was shown at the United Nations Summit, a summit that heard stark warnings about the growing danger of killer drone attacks. Americans have already been killed by these drones. Yes, Anwar al-Awlaki was a devoted terrorist, a Muslim extremist. It was determined by President Obama that he was far too dangerous to send out anybody after him. And so what ended up happening was he was located via drone somewhere in Yemen. Another drone, this one armed with a Hellfire missile, found him again. The operator of the drone identified the person inside a car. Essentially, we think got permission from American U.S. military command and control, which of course includes the commander-in-chief. A button was pushed, a rocket whooshed, flying out of the sky, hitting a car somewhere in Yemen, and blasting its occupants into small pieces of flaming meat, which were scattered across the desert floor. And that was the end of Anwar al-Awlaki, American terrorist. Killed without due process. Oh, I suppose there was a due process. The President of the United States sat in his Oval Office and sat there with a list and said, let's kill him. That kind of due process sort of makes me nervous. You know, I wondered at the time whether Anwar al-Awlaki was a Republican. And you're saying, John David, what are you so worried about? The guy was a flippin' terrorist. He would have blown you and your family to kingdom come. True. But unfortunately, there's another part of that story. And I'll tell you about that when we come back here in just a couple of moments. You're listening to The Wells Report. This is the USA Radio Network.
All right, sounding good.
Thank you very much, baby.
I like this stuff. I mean, I'm interested in this stuff, man. I saw that video you were talking about too. I had seen it before.
There is nothing to stop this. There's nothing to stop these people.
Oh, I know it. And imagine if they really had something like that, man.
No, they really have something like that.
I mean, I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure they have it out there. I mean, I imagine when they deploy it though, like on us.
Well, they can deploy it anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
And no one would know.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
I mean, and you're saying, well, that's okay. All you got to do is jam the radio frequencies that are directing them. There are no radio frequencies directing them.
Yeah, they're more and more all autonomous.
They're autonomous.
Yeah. It's pretty scary, man. Very scary stuff.
The good news is you don't have to wait long.
That one on that video looked crazy, though. The way it had that charge and went in his head like a bullet.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yep. I mean, it's like, yeah, you don't have a chance. You hear this whine, you go, what the hell is that?
Yeah.
And the lights go out.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff, man.
Yep.
I know that they use it, like you said, they use that stuff. I mean, they use like the drone technology already in wars, but you know, you got to know if they can make that, they can definitely make those smaller things like that.
Well, here's the situation. You know, what I believe is that if you are going to use these need to be weaponized. Artificial intelligence should never be allowed to, should never take a place in a killing situation. You should never ever be able to use artificial intelligence to kill a human being ever.
Oh yeah, and
it should be.
It shouldn't be able to make the decision on its own.
It should be able. You should be able. That should be listed as a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah.
Anybody that would use those weapons would be instant war criminals.
Yeah. They definitely should have it where instead of just killing on its own, it should be able to relay back to a human to make the call or something.
Well, I mean, you can't do that either.
Yeah.
In other words, if I get my way,
yeah,
you're not going to be able to use a weapon unless you are in close proximity.
Yeah.
Like, for example, arguably, this is a torpedo. A submarine fires a torpedo. The torpedo goes out and seeks out a submerged target and blows it to kingdom come. That's one of those things. But you're also in close proximity.
Yeah, yeah.
You should be within the range of the weapon.
Yeah, I got you.
Because your life should be at risk. If you're taking somebody else's life, your life should be at risk as well.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, this new stuff is crazy, man. Who knows what all they could do so much with this type of technology.
Yeah, and the they needs to, I mean, there is not a swift enough or horrifying enough punishment for somebody that would actually deploy this.
Yeah. All right, so we're back in 10 seconds.
I'm ready. You are listening to the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 844-927-6691, 844-927-6691. The name of the film that you should go see is Slaughterbots. It's on YouTube. It talks about artificial intelligence being used to guide a small drone with a small explosive charge that can recognize you through facial recognition and kill you on the spot. Stuart Russell is a professor that has been studying this. He's the person who came up with the video Slaughterbots. He is someone who can say, yeah, I know what I'm talking about here, because he indeed can. He is a professor of computing at Berkeley, the University of California at Berkeley. I've worked in artificial intelligence for more than 35 years. Its potential to benefit humanity is enormous, even in defense. But allowing machines to choose to kill humans will be devastating to our security and freedom. Thousands of my fellow researchers agree. We have an opportunity to prevent the future you just saw, but the window to act is closing fast. He is correct. Drones have killed Americans. Anwar al-Awlaki was the example that I just spoke of. He was determined to be too dangerous to send even special forces missions after, so he was killed with a drone. The strange thing about that is that same Obama administration was somehow able to capture the son-in-law of Osama bin Laden. I would say that he was at least as dangerous as Anwar al-Awlaki, and he also was not an American national. Yes, indeed, he was brought to New York and was tried in New York City. Due process that Anwar al-Awlaki didn't get. By the way, there was another Awlaki that lost his life at the hands of a drone strike. That was Abdul Rahman al-Awlaki, the 16-year-old son of Anwar, killed just like his father 2 weeks later. He was searching for his dad. As we come to this conversation, there was no real identification of Abdul Rahman being a terrorist or his high school classmate who was also killed in the drone attack. Anybody ever say anything about that? Yeah, one guy that I know of brought that up. Me. These are weapons that must be stopped before they reach the operational stage. We are going to have to demand this very, very quickly, just as Professor Stuart Russell states. The window for action is closing very, very quickly. And as most diabolical planning has shown us, the window for action closes before you have an opportunity to stop it. Once that window closes, that opportunity is gone. Hopefully not forever, because we're sitting here wondering if we really have a problem. We really have a problem. You've been listening to The Wells Report. The executive producer of this broadcast is the Philip Brown. Studio coordinator is Mike Hawkins. My name is John David Wells. Thank you very much for listening. Join us again tomorrow for another edition of The Wells Report.
All right, good show today, sir.
All right, Mikey. Thank you, man.
All right, man. Have a good one, and we'll see you back tomorrow.
I will look forward to it, my friend.
All right, man. Awesome. Have a good one.
Yep, you too. Bye.
Bye.